The Dayspring from on high hath visited us, to give light unto them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. Dayspring is an effort to be in touch with good people who love God and who believe that the Bible is His Word. Dayspring is brought to you by your neighbors from Churches of Christ in this area. And now, visit with us as we draw near to God.
We're so glad you've chosen to be with us today. I like the idea that you and I can sit down together in a nice quiet place and talk about the Bible. And as we learn from that great source, it'll do us good. I'm glad that you and I can look at the Bible in an honest and reasonable way without becoming crossways with one another. I'm reading from Acts chapter 13, a passage that I consider one of the most challenging passages in the Bible. In Acts chapter 13, Paul the preacher, and at verse 22, well, let's read verse 21. Afterward, they desired a king, and God gave them Saul, the son of Kish, a man of the tribe of Benjamin, by the space of 40 years. And when he had removed him, he raised up unto them David to be their king, to whom also he gave testimony and said, I have found David, the son of Jesse, a man after mine own heart, which shall fulfill all my will. That man, David, who became the king, is identified like this. He's a man after God's own heart. And the text before us says, that's what God said about him. God said this man, David, to be your new king, is qualified because he is a man after my own heart. What a great statement to make about any man. Back in the book of 1 Samuel. Let me read to you from 1 Samuel chapter 13. Verses 12 and 13, verses 13 and 14 in that text. Samuel said to Saul, Thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee. Interesting passage. The background in part from the passage I read in Acts 13. Saul, who became the king, disobeyed God, and God removed him from being a king. Now the search is on for somebody to take the place of Saul. And the text says, when God started that search, he looked for a man after his own heart. It'll take us a few minutes to look at the background to this text. I'm turning back again to the book of 1 Samuel. In 1 Samuel chapter 8, and perhaps at verse 1, it came to pass when Samuel was old, that he made his own sons judges over Israel. Listen, and his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, took bribes, and perverted judgment. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together, came to Samuel in Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. They had a king. God had been their king. But now they want an earthly king. And they bring that request to Samuel. And they did it because they said, Samuel, you're an old man. They implied he's too old to function as a judge. What's more, they used his sons as an excuse. Your sons are dishonest. They take bribes. And we want a king instead of that. No more judges. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people in all that they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. Well, down at verse 9 in 1 Samuel 8, Now therefore hearken unto their voice. Howbeit, yet protest solemnly unto them, and show them the manner of the king that shall reign over them. Their demand is going to be met with a terrible consequence. It's not going to work out like they want it to. So in that same chapter, in chapter 8, down at verse 19, Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel, and they said, Nay, but we will have a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. And Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he rehearsed them in the ears of the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, Hearken unto their voice, and make them a king. And Samuel said unto the men of Israel, Go ye every man to his own city. Going to take care of this matter. If you want a king, we're going to work it out for you. And Samuel contacted a man named Kish, and he had a son whose name was Saul, a choice young man and goodly, and there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his shoulders and upward, he was higher than any of the people. Well, here, Samuel has found the man he's looking for. This is going to be the next king. God has guided me to them. Well, later in that same chapter, chapter 9, down at verse 17, And when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said unto him, Behold the man whom I spake to thee of. This same shall reign over my people. Samuel, this is the man. This man named Saul. He's going to be the king they've requested. And Saul answered and said, Saul, to become the next king, he said, Am I not a Benjamite of the smallest of the tribes of Israel, and my family the least of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin? Wherefore then speakest thou to me? Why, Saul said, Not qualified to be a king. I'm from the tribe of Benjamin. My family are poor folks. And why have you come to me about serving in this terrific way? Well, it worked out that way nonetheless. Chapter 10, verse 6, The Spirit of the Lord will come upon thee, and thou shalt prophesy with them, and shalt be turned into another man. And let it be when these signs are come unto thee, that thou do as the occasion served thee, for the God is with thee. God's going to be on your side. Well, verse 9 says, it was so that when he had turned his back to go from Samuel, God gave him another heart, and all those signs came to pass that day. God indicated to Saul, you're going to be the king, and you're going to be qualified to serve in that way. So later on, in that same chapter, at verse 17, Samuel called the people together unto the Lord in Mizpah, and said unto the children of Israel, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the land of the hand of all the kingdoms, and of all them that oppressed you. And ye have this day rejected your God, who himself saved you out of all your adversaries and your tribulations. And ye have said to him, Nay, but set us a king over us. Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. And when Samuel had called all the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was taken. And when he caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the Bible says they found Saul, the son of Kish. He's going to be the king. He's chosen out of all the tribes. Samuel said to all the people, see ye him whom the Lord hath chosen, that there is none like him among the people. And all the people shouted and said, God save the king. And Samuel told the people the manner of the kingdom, and wrote it in a book, and laid it up before the Lord. And Samuel sent all the people away, every man to his house. And Saul also went home to Gibeah, and there went with him a band of men whose hearts God had touched. Well, you want a king? I'm going to let you have a king, and I'm going to support him. I'm going to be with him, and he shall serve you as long as he follows my instructions. All will go well. Chapter 11 of 1 Samuel at verse 14. Then said Samuel to the people, come, let us go to Gilgal and renew the kingdom there. And all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. And there they sacrificed sacrifices of peace offerings before the Lord. And there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. He's the new king. He's going to do a great job. And so in chapter 12 of 1 Samuel, verse 12, and when ye saw Nahash, the king of the children of Ammon, came against you, ye said unto me, Nay, but a king shall reign over us, when the Lord your God was your king. Now therefore behold the king whom ye have chosen, and whom ye have desired, and behold the Lord hath set a king over you. If ye fear the Lord and serve him, and obey his voice, and not rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then shall both ye and also the king that reigns over you continue following the Lord your God. It's going to work well as long as you and the king follow God. Is it not wheat harvest today? I will call unto the Lord. This is Saul speaking. He shall send thunder and rain, that ye may perceive and see that your wickedness is great, which ye have done in the sight of the Lord in asking you a king. So Samuel called unto the Lord, and the Lord sent thunder and rain that day, and all the people greatly feared the Lord and Samuel. And all the people said unto Samuel, Pray for thy servants unto the Lord thy God, that we die not. For we have added unto all our sins this evil, to ask us a king. They saw their mistake. Too late to do anything about it. They sinned when they asked for a king. Now it's time for them to pay the consequences of that. And so I turn from that over to chapter 13 of 1 Samuel, verse 5. The Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is on the seashore, in multitude. And they came up and pitched in Michmash, eastward from Bethaven. When the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, for the people were distressed, then the people did hide themselves in caves and thickets and rocks, and in the high places and in pits. And some of the Hebrews went over Jordan into the land of Gad and Gilead. As for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. And he tarried 7 days, according to the set time that Samuel had appointed. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. Samuel said, Saul, you wait for me in Gilgal, and in 7 days I'll come to you. Saul said, Bring hither a burnt offering to me, and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. And it came to pass that as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might salute him. And Samuel said, What hast thou done? And Saul said, Because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed, and that the Philistines gathered themselves together in Michmash. Therefore said I, The Philistines will come down now upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplication unto the Lord. I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering. And Samuel said to Saul, Thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee. Saul, your time as king is up. And the reason that it's up is because you have not obeyed the voice of God. So, verse 14 in that chapter is of significance. The Lord has sought him a man after his own heart. Saul did not turn out to be that man, a man after God's own heart. And so, later in that chapter, well, let's turn over to chapter 15 of 1 Samuel. In chapter 15 and at verse 10, Then came the word of the Lord unto Samuel, saying, It repenteth me that I have set up Saul to be king, for he has turned back from following me, and hath not performed my commandments. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried unto the Lord all night. And Samuel came to Saul. Saul said unto him, Blessed be thou of the Lord. I have performed the commandment of the Lord. Samuel said, When thou wast little in thine own sight, wast thou not made the head of the tribes of Israel, and the Lord anointed thee king over Israel? And the Lord sent thee on a journey, and said, Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they be consumed. Wherefore then didst thou not obey the voice of the Lord, but didst fly upon the spoil, and didst evil in the sight of the Lord? Not only had Saul became so presumptuous that he offered sacrifices to God, which he was not qualified to do. Now God gave him a mission, and he failed to perform that mission. And Samuel pointed that out to him. You failed in this thing. And so in that 15th chapter of 1 Samuel, look at verse 22. Samuel said, Hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath rejected thee from being king. Saul said unto Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and thy words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. Saul admitted his mistakes. I've sinned. And so at verse 26, Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with thee, for thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord hath rejected thee from being king over Israel. Samuel said to him, The Lord hath rent the kingdom of Israel from thee this day, and hath given it to a neighbor of thine, that is better than thou. That, of course, would be King David. Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for Saul, and the Lord repented that he'd made Saul king over Israel. There's the background to this statement. God testified to it. David, the new king, is a man after my own heart. We find to that in Acts chapter 2 in the New Testament. In Acts chapter 2, along about verses 24 through 31, David was raised up to sit on his throne. And that was an opportunity to foretell the coming of Christ, who was raised from the dead to sit on his throne. And in proof of that, Peter quoted twice from the Psalms. Now, here's a passage in 2 Samuel. In 2 Samuel 7, here's what God said to David, the new king. When thy days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Well, of course, Solomon, David's son, followed him to the throne. But there is a prophecy which in the New Testament is made to refer to Christ. Of the seed of David, God would raise up one to sit on the throne. Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of God, which he promised before by his prophets in the Holy Scriptures, concerning his Son, Jesus, the son of David. Yeah, descendant of David. That's the one that God would raise up to sit on his throne now, who is Christ. He raised Christ from the dead to sit on his throne. But I want you to think with me for a few moments about this terrific statement. God said it. God said, David is a man after my own heart. What bothers me about that is we emphasize David and what a great man he was, but we overlook the fact that God's heart is mentioned. God's heart. Speak unto the children, the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, Be ye holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. God repeated over and over again, I am the Lord your God. So you be holy like I'm holy. And many times in the Bible, it is affirmed for us that God was perfect. Let no man say when he's tempted, I'm tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil. There's the heart of God. It cannot be tempted of evil. John wrote, This is the message we've heard of him and declare unto you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Wherein God, willing more abundantly to show unto the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed it with an oath, that by two immutable things in which it was impossible for God to lie. My friend, the heart of God was perfect. And God testified of David, here's a man after my own heart. But you don't have to look far into David's life to realize that he was not a perfect man. Follow God after his own heart, and yet he was a sinner. What's the solution to that? Well, the solution is forgiveness. I will be merciful of their unrighteousness, their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. That's the way David stayed a man after God's own heart, because God was willing to forgive him when he sinned. The same is true of you and I today. We're to be men and women after God's own heart, but depend on God's forgiveness when we fail. Thank you for being with us today. Until the next time, may the goodness of God be yours in full measure.
You've been watching Dayspring. Dayspring is brought to you by your friends in local area churches of Christ. To request a free CD of today's lesson, you may contact us at Dayspring, Post Office Box 453, Tupelo, Mississippi 38802 0453. There is no cost for this offer. You will not be asked for financial support. You can also phone your request toll-free at 1-866-842-4139. Or you can go to our website at dayspringtv.com. Thank you for visiting with us on Dayspring. May your joy be full. May the peace of God rule in your hearts. And may the light of Christ brighten heaven's way.